I feel so lucky to own a place and to live in a place like this. The tower's like the biggest structure within the vicinity, so from whatever way you approach it, you'll turn a corner and it will sort of reveal itself, and you get a sense of the sort of size and scale of it, the imposing structure. Hi, I'm Oliver. I'm Head of Branding Communications at a workplace mental health company called Unmind. I moved into the water tower coming up for 5 years ago now, and my girlfriend Sinead moved in last summer. It's in Ladywell in Lewisham, and that's roughly 5 miles from the centre of London. It's surrounded by amazing parks, so there's Ladywell Fields, hilly fields. Ladywell is basically a village in the middle of those kind of green spaces. There's lots of nice cafes and restaurants and a really good pub. So it was built late Victorian era, I think it was 1898, by a guy called Ernest Newman, which is a good kind of Victorian architect's name. When you enter, you kind of get a feel for it feels like a fortress, which is quite hard to penetrate. There's about 7 doors that you have to take from being outside into here. Often when people convert old water towers, in order to get into the higher point, they build a kind of newer tower or an access point next to it. So to get into my place, you go through a side building and you walk all the way up some stairs and then across a bridge into the flat, where you're just struck by the space and the light. There's a huge window there, and so there's a nice contrast of going from that into here, which is home. In terms of the kitchen itself, it's pretty small and compact, it has to be, but it's got everything that you need. The kitchen is where you get a real sense of the light and the outside world. It's next to that big window. You also get a real appreciation of the sort of changing of the seasons there, because we're at tree level, and so I love the first year or two living here, where you sort of start to see the different colours of the trees as the kind of seasons go on. I made a kind of makeshift window seat there as well, so in the kind of rare times where you have a few hours of quiet time to read a book or whatever, it's a nice spot for it. Another thing is a wooden drying rack. Always had metal ones. Just a little change of material kind of has really sort of lifted it. It works nicely with the work surface, and I get a disproportionate amount of pleasure from that wooden drying rack. This is obviously the living room here. It being quite a small place, all of the spaces have to kind of double up, or have to be resourceful with it. And so I've got my desk here to work with. Obviously, this is the sitting room. This is where I come and sit down and relax after a day, watch telly. I also can pull out this dining table and host people for dinner parties. Believe it or not, I've had like 14 people here for dinner before. These book towers kind of satisfied an itch that I had for years. I think I was reading I think it was the New York Times, and there was an article with Christopher Hitchens, the author's sort of polemicist. I saw these really cool looking stacks of books in his place, and always vaguely wondered where they came from. And then when I got this place, I kind of actually did a bit more investigation and found some Scandinavian furniture company, and I think they're the exact ones. And so I like that they feel slightly industrial as well as their book towers. I think they kind of fit nicely with the water tower as well. It's a tall structure, and so it fits there. You access it through this small stairway here with the sort of space-saving steps. It kind of feels like it's floating there because you've got the mezzanine. You can see out through the tall window. You've got the original girder there, which is a sort of lovely feature. And my girlfriend and I recently bought this new kind of mid-century chest of drawers from the Crystal Palace antique shop, which we like. I also got that round table there with the idea of, it's a kind of nice spot to sit and to do my diary from while looking out onto the street below. From the kind of living room, you enter the bathroom with underfloor heating like the rest of the flat, which is always really nice when you remember to put it on, especially in the winter months. It's, big enough, probably bigger than it feels like it should be in you know, this small place. It's got everything that you need really. Although I would quite like to put one of those kind of stout copper Victorian baths in, because if there's one thing that's missing in this flat, it is the bath. Under that ugly TV is a huge storage space there. It's about the size of a room, but half the height. And so that's where I can, I've got clothes rails. There's something really satisfying by how the lip of the floor there is enough to stop the clothes rail from going back into it. And so as I bring it out, it kind of stops it from going all the way out. As I bring it back in, it stops it going for too far in. And the way that the frame of the cupboard is, there's about 3 or 4 inches, which is perfect to fit the edge of the rail in, and so that it closes flush. And so I get a lot of sad pleasure from that. So there are quite a lot of stairs. There's, I think, 60. If you're not used to using them every day, then it can be a bit of an undertaking, especially if you're coming home from, I don't know, shopping and you're weighed down with lots of Aldi bags and you need a wee, then they can be actually quite a nightmare. There's about 60 stairs to get up to from the new tower into the footbridge into mine. That's about halfway up. You can go even higher to the very top of the tower, and so that's probably another 60. And so yeah, it's a lot of walking. To get to the roof, you climb up a kind of vertical, maybe like 10 meters of ladder, so quite a long way. The top of the tower where the water was originally stored in a huge kind of canister, and so now it's a big empty sort of cavernous space. You go up a final ladder and there's sort of a hatch where you open, and then you are immediately struck by this kind of panoramic view. You can see, you know, 360 degrees and miles in every direction. You can see down to, you know, Kent and beyond on one side, and then over to Crystal Palace on the other. Looking north, you can see the centre of London, the Shard, and even beyond that. The fact that I have access to a garden in the first place, I think is brilliant, because, you know, this is, I'm halfway up the water tower, and so once you go back down the stairs, you have this, you know, pretty decent sized green space there, which is perfect for, you know, hosting people for barbecues or just to sort of sunbathe in the summer. I've got a vision of projecting a film onto the side of the tower there. There's the kind of lovely, clean sort of brickwork to, I think, could be used of a summer's evening. So it was built late Victorian era, I think it was 1898, by a guy called Ernest Newman. It was originally built to pump water to a nearby workhouse for the elderly. I think it was the first and last workhouse made specifically for the elderly. And then a few years later, during World War I, that infirmary was used to treat injured soldiers. And so again, it would service that building too. It was derelict for a large part of the 20th century until the 90s, when it was listed Grade 2. Then it was built and developed into flats and accommodation. I think that was early noughties kind of period. I really like the contrast that on the outside it's a, you know, classical old building which is, you know, essentially built for infrastructure, and now it's something that's quite domestic and, you know, comfortable. I think having that kind of contrast is great, especially with some features that hint to its kind of industrial past as well, like the girders there and the sort of brickwork behind. So aside from the drying rack that I mentioned earlier, I mean, I love the sofa. I think this was the first piece of furniture that I bought with the place, and it's just kind of really comfortable. It's actually nice to lie on and read a book or, you know, watch the telly. I really like that window seat there. So especially of a weekend morning, kind of just getting up there with a coffee and, you know, a book, or doing my diary or whatever, and sort of watching people walk past. I mean, the bed's lovely. So as I said earlier, kind of you get the impression of sometimes floating, and so, you know, after a long day to go and lie down there is brilliant. We didn't have a lot of money growing up and we didn't have a lot of space. My brothers and I would sort of live on top of each other in rooms, and so I love just having, you know, this space for me and my partner. It's I'm lucky every day that I get to own a place, let alone a place like this. You know, it's not something that is a given. It's increasingly hard for people to get on a property ladder, and so yeah, I feel very privileged and very lucky for that.
Could you tell us something surprising about yourself?
I suppose it's surprisingly unusual for this channel. I was elected as a local councillor in May here in Lewisham, so I'm even more invested in the community now.